So everyone, now we move forward to the finale panel discussion, and followed by we'll be having a award ceremony. So I request everyone, please be with us throughout the day and till the end of the awards, because at the end we are going to capture a group picture that will be a moment for all of us. So moving forward with the panel discussion, the topic will be driving efficiency and maximizing value, strategies for managing costs and optimizing ROL. The moderator for the session will be Ms. Jigyasa Kishore, Vice President Moglix. Nearly 20 years of expertise in marketing, business development and spearheading transformative ventures for major enterprises globally. Joining Moglix in 2017 as the head of technology business division and new product development, Jigyasa has crafted growth strategies for both domestic and international markets. She actively collaborates with business leaders across various sectors to identify challenges and provide digitized supply chain solutions. So now let me introduce our panelists. Mr. Mohit Jauhari, Head SCM, Shriram Pistons and Rings Limited. Mr. Saurabh Palsania, Joint President, Strategic Sourcing, Shri Cement Limited. Mr. Manuj Malhotra, VP Strategic Sourcing and Supply Chain, Omega Seiki Mobility. Mr. Siddhartha Roy, SVP-Procurement and SCM, Subway. Mr. Akshaay, Head of IT and Digital Sourcing, Bharti Airtel. Last but not least, Mr. Suresh Pillai, VP Business Solution, AuthBridge. So as we are about to start with the finale panel discussion of the day, can I ask everyone a question? Did you find today's entire sessions, all the speakers who had given their information, insights and their presentation, all the panel discussions before, do you find it fruitful by the end of this evening? Everyone? Can I expect a louder yes? Even louder, come on. I can understand the energy level is little low since the morning, but still, can we show some respect, show some love to all the speakers we had lined up for you all the top notch in their respective fields that they have shared their knowledge and insights today. Can we applaud them, everyone? Come on. All the speakers, all the panelists we had today here. And every conference is empty without the audience. And all the attendees here, if you were not here, this would not be a successful event. So for you all, can we give each and everyone a huge round of applause? Come on, everyone. So we are almost done. And with this, I respectfully invite our moderator, along with all our panelists, for the discussion on the dais, please.
So good evening, everyone. I think post-lunch sessions are always tricky. And the onus of last session. So the onus of not repeating what has already been said and done to death and keeping it interesting is always a tough job. And the topic today that we are going to talk about is driving efficiency and maximizing value. I mean, that's what supply chain procurement is all about. So what is it that we're going to talk which is going to be different? We will make sure that we have stalwarts from industry here who have done very interesting thing in their respective field, and we will try to dig in something specific from each of their lives, professional lives, and see, you know, what we can learn from them. So welcome all of you. Thanks a lot for being on the panel today. And so the first panelist that I'll start with is Manuj. And Manuj, you are part of the rising sun industry today, which is called the EV sector. Everybody is looking up to EV sector. Now, while I was talking to you, you said, you know, how the supply chain in EV is slightly complicated compared to other, you know, supply chain, given the compliance requirement that you have. Now, we all know compliance also is equal to cost. So how do you keep the cost low, or how do you maximize efficiency? Give us some, anecdotes or learnings from your journey in EV sector.
Thank you, Jigyasa. So I would say thanks because mine is basically before I jump into what is the question which we have asked. So I would like to tell that my career span is about to 24 years, out of which 23 years I have spent in heading supply chain, procurement, logistics in four-wheeler industries, light commercial vehicles, two-wheelers industry, and last year is which I have jumped on to EV sector. So I think, Jigyasa, very, very important part which you have touched upon. It is largely a buzzword which we see right now, that efficiency up and the cost down model. It's a buzzword as of now. Sorry for putting up like this. The reason being that whether it's a ICE, it's an internal combustion engine, or EV industries, this stands very, very important. They are very important, which plays a very pivotal role. However, if I see the EV industries, of course, this is the industry which gets a maximum betting nowadays, if I have to put like this. So EV industry, in terms of cost up and efficiency up, and this basically, it talks more in terms of the important levers. And if I have to summarize that, it is start with respect to, first of all, the subsidy. See, I will be a little bit selfish in putting up this point because I come from the EV industries, and I will use this opportunity to put forward. See, these two models run very parallel in basically both the industries. But when we talk about EV in specific, so the important government subsidy, like we have seen that there has been a FAME, which is a faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicle, which was in place for encouraging the EV space across the ecosystem for FAME 1 and FAME 2. And in between, we have a government has given outlay of 500 crore CR, which is valid from 1st April till 31st of July. And we are expecting, since the government formation has happened, so we'll continue to get and reap the benefit for FAME 3. So I will come again to this important point. So EV subsidy is the important lever which stands on the top of the front, in top of the Pareto. Because when I say that, even though you keep on working largely into the system for bringing about the cost down model, having a mutual collaboration with your suppliers partners, the subsidy forms a very important aspects. So EV subsidy is which puts a differentiator to this industry, which is not available in internal combustion engine. Because this industry requires that particular kind of, the prerogative in which the subsidy plays an important role into your cost model, and this has to form the basis in terms of your ZBC, which is zero-based costing model. So having said that, the first important factor, and second important thing which comes on the next to the Pareto, I would say that the scalability is very important. If I say scalability is not exactly what we see in terms of the internal combustion engine, in terms of the ramping of the numbers. When I say scalability in EV industries, which is contributing to the cost down and the efficiency up model, is in terms of B2C segment. Although there has been a larger, the deliberations going on, which talks in terms of giving impetus on, encouraging EV industry into the space, whether it's a two-wheeler, three-wheeler, the space. The important point is we need to see how there is an important focus, razor-sharp focus for B2C segment in EV space. So I'm very, very particularly touching upon this, the point which you said right now, which puts as a differentiator for these EV industries. So B2C segment needs a particular attention right now. So when I say attention, this needs in terms of the financing, the lending for the particular this segment. See, B2B segment is something which is a largely focused by the, the government body also. But B2C segment is where we see a great headroom available, but it is still, in a very, very nascent stage, the pie is yet to be eaten away for this sector. So having said the subsidy, which formed the first ever important input, and then followed by the scalability. The third important, of course, these are some of the important points, but not limited to this, what we are talking. So I personally feel the TCO projects, again, this is the total cost of ownership. We see total cost of ownership in industry of internal combustion engine, as well as into the EV space. But when I talk about the EV space, my personal experience, which is deeply into this EV industry, it says that TCO projects in EV industries, in EV space, forms a very important ingredient. Not only that, it brings the cost down when we look together with the supplier as a mutually collaborative partners. The important point is whatever project and whatever efficiency up cost down model we are doing, it should be very, very sustainable. Sustainability is the important key factor which plays a very important role when we are to drive down for this respect to TCO projects. And until unless we are going on a regular phases, so we may skip the particular game, we may skip the particular button for doing this. And I think last but not the least, the another important factor is the regulation of the commodity pricing. Commodity pricing forms, it's a very, very basic ingredient, looks like very basic, But I strongly feel that the regulation of the pricing, whether it's a lithium pricing, because EV is majorly going with respect to the powertrain, it is going with respect to the battery industries. So this needs to be regulated if we want to win the game of, so it has to be a win-win both for the customer as well as for the manufacturers who are, at least into this nascent stage, or who have ramped up their production, who have scaled up their levels. So this is going to be the very important pillar, which I explained for the last. And I think coming last is in terms of the EV infra. So this EV infra is another, very, very differentiator factor. And EV infra, when we say that, there has to be, this needs deregulation. When I said for the commodity pricing, this needs regulation, but when we talk about this EV infra, this needs to be at least a little bit deregulated, which encourages the maximum participation for allowing the cost model and efficiency model to be little bit on the balancing sides, which will help in achieving our target for this industry. So this is what is, of course, not limited to these factors, but largely contributor for what is the, what you raised right now.
No, I think this is very interesting point that you raised here, and I think how new industry, or a rising sun industry as we call it, is heavily influenced by the policies of the government and subsidy,
Absolutely.
which helps it shape up, which goes literally beyond the supply chain and the procurement maximization itself. And it's a very good landing to the next panelist, which is Vikas Arora. And Vikas, you lead the finance and supply chain and digital MSME equipment finance for Shriram Finance Limited. And the question that I had for you was, today, gone are the days when finance used to be an inward-looking function where they would just, focus at the cost levers and say, यहाँ से लोग कम करो, वहाँ पे inventory कम करो. Today, finance is an outward-looking function and more an enabler. So we were talking, and you mentioned a very interesting point on how finance is an outward-looking function that enables supply chain efficiency and value. So would you want to talk about it?
Yes, definitely. Yes, I've been leading supply chain finance at Shriram, but incidentally prior to this, I was also heading a tech company which was also managing outsourcing activities on the AP account payable side also. So have very closely worked with a lot of supply chain specialists like all yours, and obviously now in a different avatar, financing some of the supply chains with new role at Shriram. Very, very, very pertinent point. I remember when I used to interact my initial days, career days with procurement teams, supply chain, financing teams, commercial finance teams. The whole objective was how to get the raw material, purchase time पे होना चाहिए, और मतलब अगर चाहिए तो चाहिए, there should not be any breakage in supply chain. Slowly that graduated to the fact that supply chain is there, that is bare minimum, that's part of the core function, but how we can make it more cost effective and efficient. How we can reduce the overall cost. During my interaction, I remember a decade back with one of the largest OEMs, their endeavor and focus was one, to ensure what they did, they started kind of, consolidating the suppliers. And with all those suppliers, they started working on the cost. Every year they had an agenda, how should I reduce the procurement cost? They did not stop there. They went to the supplier of the supplier also, where they said, okay, we have reached to the level where we can't cut the cost more, or we can't make them more efficient. Why don't we work to the tier 2 level, where we work closely with them and see that our supplier cost is also reduced and they are also more efficient. To that extent that they built a beautiful supply chain finance program for them, where they reached out to lenders, not just lenders, they reached out to technology companies, they reached out to manufacturing companies. They ensured some of them revamp their entire processes so that their supply chain can be becoming more efficient. That is the level of aggression, activation some of the large companies have reached out, so that their procurement is not just continuous in nature, they also become much more efficient and cost effective. So that's the biggest learning. And sometimes we feel, is it only meant for the super large ultra corporates, who have excelled? You will be surprised to know, and I can't take the liberty of naming that corporate for obviously non-disclosure reasons. I've known a company which is one of the biggest white goods company now and into cables, and I'm sure you can figure out the name. I've seen them for the past 1.5 decades, how they have transformed their procurement, their supply chain, not just on the procurement side, but on the collection side also. Obviously, that is a subject for some other day. But today, I can tell you, so people who are sitting here may be part of a large corporate or small corporate or a medium corporate. The level of engagement, the level of involvement, and finance, like I said, initially finance was all about, the purchase person would go to finance, say, okay, my supplier should get payment on time, so supplier doesn't stop, right? Today, the finance is completely outward. The tools are so much available, the technologies are so many available, which is making sure that finance is just not a tool to procure, but tool to make your supply chain much more efficient.
No, that is wonderful perspective that, finance from becoming delay the payment of supplier to now it has become release the payment faster so that supply chain is de-risked and people are able to actually, procure the things at the right time. I think that's a very changed perspective now of finance, and thanks for that, Vikas. And I think I would, next come to Mohit. Mohit, you lead, the procurement and supply chain for Shriram Piston, and you have such a vast experience in the domain. We were discussing about various levers of optimization and building block, and then you said something interesting about what you think is the most important lever. Why don't you share it with all of us here?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks to Gain Skills and Moglix and all the sponsors for getting us all together. It's been a long day, I guess, but we'll try and keep it lively for you. And coming to the question posed by Jigyasa, her name itself is Jigyasa, so she's curious by name and nature. So having said that, the thing which drives or which is pivotal to an organization is, any guesses? I'm just trying to check if everyone is awake. Any guesses? None? See, it has to be data. Data, to me and to a lot of us, is the new oil. Data is the new oil. Mind you, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to shape or break companies going forward. We are sitting on tons and tons of data. Companies which make good use of data are the ones which are going to survive and thrive. Companies which are not good at making good use of data may fall by the wayside or whatever. So that's how important data is. And having said that, companies are using algorithms to predict customer behavior. Why? We all have to be customer centric. Everyone, every organization can only survive and thrive if it's customer centric. Why? Because we all are customers. Look at the way our behavior has changed over the past 5, 7, 10 years. Look at the kind of expectations that all of us have, whether it's the cab or whatever that you have ordered, even if it's a book, you want a time by time tracking as to where it has reached, why is it getting delayed even by half an hour or whatever. So the customer is not just looking at a product and its price. He's looking at plus, 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 and the expectations are going to make companies go crazy if they don't use predictive analytics to mine data and use it to their advantage. And when I say that, I have a couple of examples in mind. Moglix being the sponsor, I'm not saying it just for the heck of it. I've been dealing with Moglix for the past 9 odd years, ever since they started. And the way they have started making good use of data, they have a lot of information about a lot of companies. Without divulging those informations, they are making use of it to predict what companies are going to desire or demand from them. So that's the kind of data mining that's being done right here, right now by a team which is represented by Jigyasa over here. Another company which comes to the mind is Blinkit. They have used predictive analytics to define what you're going to order once you have reached home, or for a lady who has just come back from office, and the moment she starts entering or keying in the words, they already know what she's going to order. So that is the reason why they are able to deliver within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or whatever. So that's the kind of data mining that's being done. And data, as I said, is the new oil. How many of you have Apple Watches or smartwatches? No smartwatches here? Because data analytics is going to be the smartwatch for companies going forward. Why I say that? Look at what the Apple Watch did for Remo Fernandez. You know Remo Fernandez? So it saved his life. I mean, he got an alert that you are getting a heart attack, please rush to the doctor, and that's what he did and saved himself. And that's precisely how important companies are using data for. So, I mean, data is going to be the buzzword going forward. It's becoming a bit drab, so let me share an example. I had to interview a few guys for the post of a purchaser in my company. Amit came in and appeared for his interview. Ujjwal came in and appeared for his interview. Then came DATA, Dataram. Whom did we select? Any guesses? You guessed it right, but we selected him because of his credentials, nothing more than that. It's coincidental that his name was Data, or Dataram, but that's how it is. Data is going to play a pivotal role in organizations. I mean, gone are the days when you had prediction failures. I mean, there were forecasts going wrong, creating a havoc in the supply chain, creating havoc in the inventory cycles of companies sitting on piles of tons of products which were not getting sold, companies running out of stocks of the products in demand. So that used to happen. Is it happening now? It is, but the extent has reduced. So that's how data is helping companies optimize their operations. I mean, it's not just about serving customers. Ultimately, they have to be optimally utilized as far as their resources are concerned. So companies are using predictive analytics. A lot of customer-centric information is being used, and it is predicting how the companies should operate, whether it's lot sizes, whether it's transportation cycles, logistics, operations, and everything. So everything is getting optimized so as to make sure that the customer gets the best out of the business, or the customer gets the best service from an organization. So that's, and how to go about doing it, you will have to use the 3C. When I say the 3 C's, you will have to connect the supplier's supplier to the customer's customer by way of information sharing, start communicating, which is the second C, communicate from the customer's customer to the supplier's supplier, real time at that, and once that starts happening, the third C comes in, which is collaboration. So you will have connection amongst all the supply chain links, communication across the chain, and then followed by collaboration, which will lead to a delighted customer, as every one of us wants to be. So that's how important data analytics is, and I need not say about what data analytics does. It optimizes your resources, it optimizes your output, and I'll share a few examples of companies who have reaped benefits using data analytics. Walmart is one which optimizes inventory using data analytics. Siemens, they saved 25 million in annual cost, $25 million in annual cost in maintenance, just by optimizing their maintenance cycles using data analytics. PayPal, which is a renowned name, saved users an estimated $2 billion. It's not a small number, $2 billion in potential losses through elimination of unauthorized transactions in a single year. Coming to a country, Singapore uses data analytics to optimize its traffic flows and save fuel. Fuel is important, so is energy. John Deere has helped farmers save about $1.5 billion through improved crop yields using data analytics. So data science or data analytics is not just a buzzword. It's happening right here, and the magnitude is just getting started. I mean, we're just getting started with the data analytics and the data management thing. It's going to boomerang, and it's going to become bigger and bigger as the days go by. That's it for me. Thank you.
No, thanks, Mohit. I think it's a very, while at the face of it, it might seem like a very, simple and fundamental point, but actually it is a fundamental point. So any innovation that you want to do, this is literally the stepping stone of that innovation. And interacting with a lot of manufacturing companies across India and globally also, this is one problem that has actually not been solved by most people. So there is information overload, there is data everywhere, but how to assimilate and use that data in the right way is something that people are still trying to figure out. That brings me to, Siddhartha, to you. Now Siddharth here is the SVP procurement for an SCM for Subway. So every time you eat a Subway sandwich now you will remember Siddharth. So Siddharth, given that we were talking about how you have led FMCG supply chain throughout your life, and this is your second QSR that you are on to, QSR brings with itself very, very typical challenges. Given that perishable supply chain or cold chain is another gamut to solve for, because now you are not just optimizing for supply chain, but you're also optimizing for wastage. So, what's your thought on, one or two things I would like to know from you, which you have done or which you think should be done, which audience can benefit from to maximize the value?
So, yeah, I agree with my co-panelists that data is very important. And so I just want to say, before data comes Jigyasa, right? So Jigyasa is like the way you ask question. So the why. So you have to ask why every time. When there is a cost, you have to ask a why. Why there is a cost, why there is the cost increases and increases. So every year it increases. So it does the same thing with any supply chain, and it's not different with Subway supply chain. It's more complicated. That we deal with ambient, we deal with chill supply chain, and we also deal with frozen, right? So there are three supply chain running in one company, and that's the complicacy of this supply chain. But what we have been able to achieve in the last few years, we have done we have asked the right kind of questions. And with that, what we have arrived at is a win-win solution for our, for us as well as our suppliers, right? And that is very important. So you have to hit the sweet spot where you survive and they also survive. So that has been the crux of how we have been able to drive efficiency together, right? It's not about you just living and sustaining in this world, right? You will have to help the entire ecosystem, the vendor ecosystem, to survive with you, for you to succeed. So that's what I call a win-win. And how did we arrive at that win-win? So we make it very simple. So in our organization, we say that we will work with a open book costing. We ask all our suppliers that please share your costing details, and we do the costing together. And we deal with, these are the top 3 heads as per the BOM, as per the cost structure. So these are the 3 top heads, and then we ask each other questions that how we can drive or reduce cost of the top head. So they will say that saturated, can't. Second one, what we can do together. So this is how we arrive, and this is how we deal with all. And why I'm calling this as a win-win? Because when the cost of that commodity of that head increases, he comes back to me and says that, like, if I am purchasing a dairy product, so it is pegged with milk. If Amul has increased 2 rupees of milk, I know my paneer or my cheese, paneer increases by 10 rupee per 1 rupee increase. Cheese increases by 15 rupee per 1 rupee increase. So that's where I know that we have to give that increase to my supplier, and equivalently I'll have to pass on that cost to my customer, right? It cannot, because everybody knows this, that's an open information, right? That's a information available everywhere. So that's where we drive this win-win, and whenever it comes down, not in milk, but in other categories, if the costs come down, we obviously approach our supplier and say that, see, this commodity has decreased, so now we'll have to, like, soya oil has reduced, right? It was 170, 180, now it is hovering around 95, 96. So I'm negotiating with all my sauce vendors about how we can work together, how we can get the prices down, right? So this is what I am doing day in and day out, and that is where the sweet spot is. And that is where if you do it, you don't have to compromise on the quality. You don't have to re-engineer your product. And you can drive, and we can coexist like we are discussing, all the co-panelists and discussing so many things. I think that's the success mantra of coexisting and co-surviving, driving profitable P&L for all of us, and that's how I do business, right? So that's from me. Thanks.
I think this is brilliant because, fostering that trust and collaboration down the, what can be more creative way of de-risking supply chain? We keep talking about how the supplier relationships are so important. Everybody is, privy to should costing here. Everybody has done it. But one is, doing should costing and, squeezing the supplier is one aspect, whereas creating a win-win by sitting across the table and creating a common chart is another one. So I think that's an amazing point. I think we will all take that point home today. But also, interestingly, while you are at the topic of supplier collaboration, our next speaker, Suresh Pillai, who is VP Business Solution for AuthBridge. So, Suresh, we were discussing about one, to create that trusted, pool of suppliers, you also need to work with the like-minded, right people with the right matching DNA, if you know what I mean. You cannot possibly, Siddhartha, be sitting across someone who you don't trust, So, and Suresh here, possibly, what you do helps everybody de-risk their supplier relationship to an extent. Would you want to talk about it?
Thanks, Jigyasa. And before that, thank you, Siddhartha. Now I understand, why the price of paneer has suddenly shot up because of the increase in 2 rupees of milk. So let me, I think in today's session, we spoke a lot about, we had a lot of discussions about how to increase the efficiency of a supply chain ecosystem, both financial, non-financial parameters. Let me speak maybe a couple of minutes on, how technology can aid and play a very pivotal role in the entire life cycle and risk management. I'll also talk about the risk management and in creating efficiency, in de-risking, creating a, as Jigyasa mentioned, a room for transparency and also a balance between convenience and compliance, which is a need of the hour. So before, I dwell deep into what the technology does today, let me set a brief context, which I'm sure you are the masters of this. But if you look into the stages of a supply chain life cycle, the first and the foremost is you would be identifying the right partner in the right category. So this is the first and foremost step wherein, you would be floating RFPs, RFQs, internal databases, connects, etc. Once you identify a channel partner, then comes in the process of document collection, right? So the documents could vary from the basic KYC, KYB. It would get into the financial, the qualitative aspects, the director details, the backgrounds, etc. Once this is collected, starts moving to different departments, different teams who would be scrutinizing those, doing the due diligence of this. It could be the finance, the commercial, the legal, the quality team, etc. Once there's a green signal to all these aspects, then comes in the approval mechanism wherein the file starts moving across the levels, across the teams, wherein you get the go-ahead from multiple teams, and then the process for the legal documentation kicks in. Then you would have your contracts, your rate cards, your agreements, etc. And once this is complete, then comes in the final onboarding of a channel partner. Now, depending upon the company, depending upon the industry, the processes, the stages could be here and there, but overall, these are the different stages of a life cycle management till the onboarding of a channel partner. Now, the interesting aspect is if you look into all these stages, there is one common factor. If not all, but many organizations even today do most of these stages in a manual way. You would be having a vendor form which is manually filled. You would be asking for the documents through emails. You would be doing the scrutiny via multiple teams They're using their own sources. Their approvals are done manually. And then the legal contracting. I wouldn't say that all the organizations are doing it manual, but there are a lot of organizations even today doing this manual, and I have been a supply chain risk manager for last 12 years. So I talk to a lot of risk management people, and I understand, even today there's we talk a lot about AI, we talk a lot about ML, but frankly, we haven't reached that level, okay? So what are the risks associated? So when we talk about manual processes, the obvious answer is a high turnaround time. The second is the manual errors or the manual inefficiencies coming in. The third is a repository of data. It's a very quite common statement we get, when there's a disaster happening with a channel partner, maybe 3 years down the line of onboarding, you go and search for the documents and the people would say, I was not in the system. It was done by someone else, so I don't have the documents with me. Second is, the fourth point is the lack of information. End of the day, everyone has their own KRAs. We don't have the right set of information or the expertise to do the due diligence. What we do is, we go to the documents which has come from the supplier, we do an assessment of those, and depending on what the vendor wants to say, basis the document, we do the due diligence of those. And we get happy in appointing. Most important aspect is a unhappy, dissatisfied channel partner because of the lack of transparent communication. Because multiple to and fro communications, lack of understanding which documents have to be submitted at what time, and also the buyer. We always forget that there's a buyer sitting in the organization who is equally unsatisfied because they are the people who wants to onboard a supplier, and as rightly my panel speaker was mentioning, we lose the important time of onboarding. Someone wanted to onboard someone in the first week of a month, we onboard them in the last week of the second month, because the process took it that long. So there are some interesting research articles by Gartner. So they had done some research around the risk assessment being done. And it says 60% of the corporates don't do a full range of assessment because they don't have the right visibility of information, expertise, and the right data being collected. More alarming, 67% of the companies don't do a continuous monitoring because of the lack of data to be collected on a periodic basis, and again, lack of expertise. That's where we are. That's where we are today. That's the reason I mentioned, we are a little far beyond AI/ML. We are not reached AI/ML, sorry. So we, as a digital first company, we did a lot of research. We spoke with a lot of industry leaders, procurement leaders, even MSMEs, who are typical channel partners, to understand what is the need of the hour. There are a lot of companies who are digitizing this in bits and pieces. So you will find companies who are doing the legal contracting, companies who are doing the due diligence online, etc. So the need was loud and clear. One platform which can help you digitally onboard a partner, digitally collect the documents, validate the statutory documents on a real-time basis. So you need not wait for days. The due diligence is done by the analytical team and the report is getting generated in the platform. And the entire approval review mechanism is in the platform. The legal documentation is triggered and completed along with the e-stamping and e-signing on the platform, okay, which completes the entire onboarding of a channel partner on one single platform, which can be integrated onto the ERP system, be it a SAP or a Salesforce or a Microsoft for that matter. The second stage for this evolution was wherein, there was a post-appointment risk monitoring. A lot of times we appoint someone and हम भूल जाते हैं. जब तक something happens, we don't think about them. What if they are not paying their GSTs on time? What if there's a media report about them, there's a criminal litigation, there's a 138 check bounce? We don't keep a track on those. So today there are technologies which help you proactively monitor this. You need not wait for a disaster to happen and then do a postmortem on those. So this is something which I wanted to highlight as to what technology is playing a very important role. Obviously, there's a lot of AI, ML in these aspects. But more important to understand is how can we leverage technology in the management and in mitigating the risk associated with a channel partner, right from onboarding till the exit of the partner from the system. That's it from me.
Great. So Suresh, you spoke about the whole life cycle management of a supplier and how you sort of de-risk the supply chain by managing the life cycle. Interestingly, Akshaay also had a similar point, and Akshaay was talking about how to proactively, how can you be able to, and if you think about it, so Akshaay is head of IT and digital sourcing in Airtel. Now, what does being in Airtel mean? The implication of being in Airtel is that you have various tiers of suppliers. So it's not just tier 1 supplier that you're dealing with. There is supplier, supplier, supplier. So, how do you then sort of make sure that the supply risk, so to speak, is mitigated in terms of figuring out if you're working with the right kind of people?
Thanks, Jigyasa, for this question. Well, it's been 16 years in telecom. I have realized that telecom industry was once a sunrise sector to a stable sector, and then we moved to a tariff war with a tsunami of our competition. Don't want to take the names. And then from there moving to a product company, or rather I could say a platform company. So there is a whole evolution in a telecom sector now. Now we are no more a postpaid or a prepaid company doing B2C kind of a mobility work. We have become a platform company. In the procurement era, now we are all talking about the buzzword which my friend was talking about, AI, and we're talking about predictive procurement. I think the major challenge which I've observed is we have different platforms for different requirements. Today I have one hire to retire platform, I have a separate ERP, I have a separate contract lifecycle management tool, I have my different learning and development tool. The question is, how can we synergize these different platforms together? Right? That is one question should be there. And second is, as my friend also spoke about the data, because I believe that data and platforms are more like a hand in glove kind of a relation. Because I tell my team also, it's more like, if you don't have the right data, which is fed into these platforms, it's more like garbage in versus garbage out. So we at Airtel, whenever we are working for a particular transaction or a particular deal, we not only talk about, of course, driving efficiency and reducing the cost has always been the procurement KRAs, right? But we also talk about supplier risks, which are very important to us. And now these risks could be a business continuity risk, it could be a information security risk, it could be a anti-corruption risk, it could be a credit rating risk. Now the question back to us, all of us, is that how is IT leveraging these risks in a way to reduce and mitigate these issues whenever we are doing a discussion with a partner. So there are different AI-powered platforms which are more like a third-party risk control system or a risk control center, what we say, different companies have different names. And these tools are, as my friend spoke about, they are all AI/ML based. What it does is, I believe it improves the ways of working in procurement. So rather than, it sends the alerts. So before we start the discussion with a strategic supplier, I know what do I have to talk about apart from the cost. I know what risk he's going through. I know what is the credit score he has. I know what business I have given him in the past. I know which quadrant he lies in, and using that, I'll be able to negotiate wisely, not only on the cost, but also on the different commercial TNCs, which we say, including, of course, apart from commercial TNCs, we have, information security TNCs as well, which is, now India has just launched this DPDA Act, which talks about each breach by any partner comes around 250 crores to a controller, which is Airtel in the transaction. So I think coming back to it, these AI-powered platforms have really helped, at least my organization, in negotiating and doing proactive buying rather than a post-facto discussion.
So thanks a lot, and concluding the session today, just to keep it short and sweet, it's very interesting that we almost had like a small masterclass of levers of maximizing value, and I would love to, just kind of repeat it for all of you, because sometimes when you're speaking, you might not even know what all nuggets you have left for everyone. So the 6 levers that came out of this session is: number 1, policies. They need to be in the right place to be able to enable maximizing supply chain. Otherwise, it's very difficult, especially in the sunrise industries. Number 2, financial collaboration. So rather than, becoming a gatekeeper, how the finance today is actually facilitating the supply chain to make sure that the suppliers are part of the ecosystem and thriving, not just surviving. Number 3, data. How data becomes the foundation and an important lever to optimize your cost. You should know what, where, who you are buying from, how much you are buying to be able to negotiate better. And likewise, who, where, what you are supplying and what the inventory optimize should be. 4th is collaborative pricing. So it's not just should costing, it's collaborative pricing. So that is interesting. 5th is supplier audit, how to build robust supplier audit through a platform and not manually keeping a checklist. And 6th is de-risking supply chain and negotiating contracts better by knowing where the supplier risk lies. I mean, do you want to put more liability on one supplier and lesser liability on the other, etc. So thanks a lot. I think this is something that can be published in a handbook and elaborated upon. So let's hear a round of applause for all the...
I guess we are expecting a louder round of applause, everyone, as this is the finale panel discussion of the day. Thank you so much for marking this spectacular day with your glorious presence. Thank you so much. And now I request Mr. Ajay Singh, Vice President, Supply Chain Management, Hindustan Platinum. Please join us, sir, and please present a token of appreciation to our entire panel. We have with us our moderator, Ms. Jigyasa Kishore, Vice President, Moglix.